It's Thursday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope you guys are all having a great day out there today. Terrific show coming up. Claire de Lune joins me here in just a little bit. She's been on a few times now talking Lakers in particular. She writes about the Lakers for The Guardian. Timberwolves, Lakers, Saturday. That series begins in Los Angeles. We will talk about that series. Claire will share her perspectives on the Lakers this season. It's been a whirlwind year for them, punctuated, of course, by the shocking Luka Doncic trade around the trade deadline that has kind of recalibrated their chances this season and giving them a realistic chance to win the NBA title, but Timberwolves will have a lot to say about that, so we'll get into that whole series and what the implications are for all the stars in that series, including Anthony Edwards, of course, of the Timberwolves. I'll play a little bit of Ant's media availability from Wednesday at the end of the show as well, because I thought that was pretty interesting. He seems locked in and focused, ready to prove something, I think, even after proving something last year. They got to the Western Conference Finals, but he is not settling, it sounds like, and is ready to meet the challenge head on. First, though, what did I miss? I want to talk about the Twins and just kind of an interesting realization I came to yesterday. I went to part of Wednesday's game in person at Target Field. First Twins game I had been to this season. Went down, wandered around for about 4 innings. I got there a little bit late, but I saw the second, third, fourth, and fifth innings. Saw the Twins score a couple of runs right before I left and then wandered back to the office to finish up my work day. And just was struck by a couple things. One, it's still nice to just be at a ball game. Target Field is still a great place to be. It was a reasonable day outside. It was not warm, but it was warmish for this time of year. It was sunny. It was a pleasant mid-April day for a baseball game. And there's still an experience of going to a baseball game that feels good. It's different than going to any other sporting event. There's a different pace to it. There's a different kind of way you watch the game, or at least the way I like to watch the game. I basically spend 1 inning at various vantage points just walking around the field. That's kind of how I like to do things, especially if I'm by myself. If I'm with a group, I'm not going to leave them. If I'm with my family, I'm not going to abandon them or insist that they follow me everywhere. But if I'm by myself, which I like to do on these afternoon games sometimes, I'll just wander over there, watch an inning from down the right field line, watch an inning from behind home plate, watch an inning from kind of down the left field line, watch an inning from the outfield and center field, and then kind of make my way around, all that stuff. So it's still we get negative. We talk about the Twins this, the Twins that. It's still a good place to be. It's still baseball still has that quality going for it. The other thing that I'm noticing about this year's Twins, they're 7-12 right now. They won yesterday 4-3 in extra innings. I find myself strangely invested in this team, and I was trying to sort out why. Like I'm walking to my car yesterday after I got back to the office. I finished a bunch of stuff, and I'm walking to my car. I saw this. I checked my phone to see what the score is, see that they've given up their 3-0 lead. It's 3-3 now. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened in this game? Start watching it on my MLB app. Listen to the radio. Shout out Chris Atterbury on my drive home. Listening to them pull it out in improbable fashion, get the outs they needed in the 10th. Cole Sands gets a huge double play ball. They end up winning 4-3 when Ty France delivers a game-winning hit. Byron Buxton flying around the bases. They're 7-12. This has not been a good start to the season. And again, Lavelle and I talked about this Wednesday. We don't know yet for sure if this is a bad team or a decent to good team that is off to a bad start. It's still early enough in the Major League season, and we'll keep saying this. They were 7-13 last season at right around this point. They're 7-12 right now. The season didn't end the way they wanted it to last season, but they got to 70-53 after starting 7-13. The turnaround pretty much started immediately after that point, and then all of a sudden you're looking at them and saying, okay, They went 63-40 after starting 7-13. Anything is possible. It's a long season. They've got some injuries, this and that. But the point being, we don't know yet if they're a bad team. They might just be a good team off to a bad start. However, I'm still asking myself, why am I so invested in this team? I wasn't invested in last year's team as much. I wasn't invested in the team 2 years ago. The short answer is, like, to a certain degree, I have to be invested in every team to a certain degree professionally. I talk about these teams. I write about these teams. So I'm going to have a certain baseline level of investment where I know what's going on. I'm kind of tracking things as they go. I want to be able to talk and write knowledgeably about them, of course, right? Like, it's part of my job, which is great. I love that part of my job. It's wonderful to be able to have that as part of my job, but it is part of my job to be knowledgeable about all these teams. So I have to have a certain baseline level of investment. But this is going beyond that. I'm like, why am I so invested? I could have caught up with the highlights later. I could have, you can find out how things went any number of ways now. You don't have to be invested in the moment. I'm more invested in the moments with this team. I think a little bit of it is the TV availability. I've been able to watch more games this season because of the availability they have now with the direct-to-consumer app, which I purchased. But I think part of it is this. In discovering and thinking about my sports watching history, and particularly my baseball watching history, I have tended to have liked a lot of really bad teams. I don't know what exactly that says about me or my fandom. I think there's something kind of fun or unique or lovable about getting in on the ground floor on a team and watching them have a certain amount of success. But like, if I go back and watch and think about my baseball watching history, like, I was a huge Atlanta Braves fan in the 1980s. Probably started watching them mostly around 1983, 1984 when I'm like 7, 8 years old. They were awful. They weren't that bad right then and there. They were still pretty good right then and there. They had won the division in 82. I wasn't really a fan then. 83, they were in the pennant race all the way through. They lost kind of, September was not great for them. But like 84 is really when I start like latching onto them. 85, 86, 87, 88. 89, they are awful during those years. They went 54-106 in 1988, and I would still record every single game that I couldn't watch live. I would set the VCR, I'd record it, or I would watch it live. The friends of mine were like, why are you rushing home to watch this game? Why do you care about this awful baseball team that's a million games out of first place? Short answer was, I don't know. I don't know what it is about a team that's bad that makes me want them to be good, that makes me want to see the transformation from bad to good. And there's also a certain kind of like, you got to want it. Only the diehards are watching the really bad team. Only the sickos are watching the team that's 54-106. And I remember the year after that, 1989, they went 63-97, something like that. Lonnie Smith, they brought in Lonnie Smith. He was fantastic for them that year. And I remember one of the announcers saying, as bad as things have been, I don't know where they'd be without Lonnie Smith. And I looked up, he was almost a 9-WAR player that season. He was great for them that year. Without Lonnie Smith, they probably would have been a 54-win team just like they were the year before. They would have finished 37 games out of first instead of 28 games out of first. The point is, they were hopeless no matter what. But there is some hope within that. Then, of course, you stick with it. 91, Braves go to the World Series. I'm on the wrong end of that because I'm a huge Braves fan at that point, even though I'm growing up in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Almost all my friends are Twins fans. Best friend, Keith, who's been on this show multiple times with Vikings Poetry, he's a huge Twins fan. We had a $5 bet back then, which $5 was a lot of money to me back then. Lost the $5 bet, lost the World Series, tremendous World Series. I stay a Braves fan, of course, for a while still through that. They're good now. I'm invested. I'm really invested. I go to a Braves playoff game in 1993. I'm still hooked. The payoff is here. But then I go to college at the U of M. It's 94. Come down here. Still a Braves fan, certainly for a couple more years in there, especially they win the World Series, 1995. Finally, the payoff for all of the suffering. They finally win that World Series. But then things start to kind of turn. I'm more watching the Twins. It's the local team. It's the team that is more available to me, both in person and on TV. 97, I start to watch more Twins. 98, I start to watch more Twins. So, I'm becoming invested again in a team that is, again, terrible. The Twins were terrible at those points. They had no hope, no good players. I shouldn't say no good players, but there was no hope for those teams. I'm going to games with, 7,000 fans at the Metrodome, and there's just something unbelievably enchanting about again, the diehards, the sickos at those games who were watching it, who were hoping against all hope that something good might happen for this team, that for which nothing good is happening this season. And, again, around that time, I get hired by the Star Tribune. I start, covering some Twins games in 2001. So my relationship with the team changes, evolves, things like that. But I'm still more invested in those late 90s teams for whatever reason. I think there's something about me, maybe some segment of my fandom that wants to see a team that's struggling because you want to believe that things are going to get better. Maybe that's my level of investment with the Twins this year. Again, I don't know if they're terrible or they're just going to off to a terrible start. Again, a lot of my kind of watching of this team, a lot of my obligation with this team is still professional right now more than anything else. But I do find myself oddly drawn to this team right now, even though most people are repelled by them. Most people are like, this is a bad team. I'm tired of this ownership situation. I'm tired of them not spending money in the offseason. They took all the goodwill from 2023 and burned it to the ground in the last 18 months. Like, that's all true. I don't understand it any more than you do. I do find myself oddly compelled to pay more attention to this team than I probably need to, and I'm trying to sort that out, and I think the short answer is that I like to be in on the ground floor and watch these teams that maybe don't seem like they have a chance, suddenly have a chance. You saw the payoff with the Twins. They ended up being great in the 2000s, didn't win a World Series, but they were great. They won 6 division titles. Like, there is a building process there. It is fun to be in on the ground floor. It is fun to watch a team with only the diehards. I think that's fun. Only the diehards are there. Only the true believers are there, and maybe that's what I'm going through right now with the Twins to a certain degree. All right, let's bring back Claire DeLune, friend of the Daily Delivery program. She's been on a few times. Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. The occasion this time, of course, is you cover the Lakers for The Guardian. You've written extensively about them, about LeBron, about everything going on with this team. You also have, obviously, Minnesota ties. You're from here, musician, all of that for people who remember Claire. But we got to talk playoffs because that's, This is no time for idle chit chat. This is no time for the regular banter. It's time. Yeah. Saturday in LA, Wolves at Lakers. They're only separated by one game ultimately in the standings. Lakers got the 3 seed, Wolves got the 6. The West was just crazy at the end. But I feel like the Lakers landed in a pretty good spot and gave LeBron at least one more legitimate chance to make a run. Where do you see this from the Lakers standpoint before we get into Wolves stuff? Because we haven't talked since they got Luka.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to the Timberwolves, because I think it's going to be a tough series for the Lakers. I don't think this will be easy by any means. I would be surprised if it's over in sooner than 6 games, but I think they got the most favorable bracket sort of outcome possible with the standings as bunched up as they were, because they got to avoid Golden State in the first round, who I personally think is their worst matchup in the West. And I would include Oklahoma City in that. I think the Warriors are a worse matchup for them than OKC. And that's been borne out by recent games and the results. And then they're also on the other side of the bracket from the Clippers and the Nuggets, who might also be tough for them. So, if they make it out of this series with the Wolves, then they face either the Rockets or the Warriors in the second round. If the Rockets are able to take care of business against the Warriors, I don't even think they're favored, even though they're the 2 seed. But
I know, it's wild.
Then theoretically, their path to a conference finals could be Wolves Rockets, which I think is about as ideal as it could have ended for them, keeping in mind that the West is a gauntlet and there are no easy paths out.
Wolves, Lakers will be, I think it's just kind of this classic matchup of, obviously you have Ant for the Wolves, so you've got the star power there, but the Wolves are predicated on depth and being able to play a few different ways. If something isn't working, they've got a lot of buttons they can push, they can go to different players. Like their first 3 guys off the bench arguably are just as good as, their bottom 3 starters. Like they have a lot of depth with, obviously with Naz Reid, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then with Dante DiVincenzo. Everybody's basically healthy right now. The Lakers, however, have arguably the greatest player of all time, who is still playing at an extremely high level at age 40, and who has got to be ultra motivated because these chances are going to become more fleeting, even if he plays great until he's 70. Like at some point, something's going to happen. Like he won't be this great forever, we don't think. And then you've got Luka, who eliminated the Wolves last year, who showed them kind of what playoff basketball is all about. So you've got kind of this, it's not all the Lakers have. They have got other good players. They have Austin Reeves. They have other capable scorers, capable defenders, but it's kind of this classic matchup of depth versus this star power. I think we know what usually wins in the playoffs, but it's also, again, not a given because of the matchups of how they could shake out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair read on the situation. I mean, I obviously the Wolves are a deeper team than the Lakers. I don't even think the Lakers would argue that. And, like you said, there is top end talent there on the Wolves. And we saw Ant carry a team essentially to the conference finals last year. But I do think Luka's built different. I mean, Wolves fans saw that last year.
Gosh.
He is as unafraid as Ant is. I would say Luka is equally unafraid. Neither of them believe anyone on earth can guard them, and they might both be right, to
different ways. Yeah, different ways. Sure.
So I think, not to say that we'll cancel each other out, but the top end talent is there on both sides. If both of those stars show up, I do think LeBron is sort of the difference maker there, in the sense of when you look at the second option, and to even say LeBron is the second option, I have him, fifth on my MVP ballot this year.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. So he's a hell of a second option, if not a first option on some nights. But then you look at that. So I would say the top end of the depth chart, and I would even argue, this might be controversial with this audience, but it's a real conversation to me between who that, I would say, I guess once you get past those three, who the fourth best player in the series is and where they play. Because I think there's a really good case for Austin Reeves as sort of, both a scorer and a facilitator, playmaker. So the top end depth, I think it goes a little deeper on the Lakers side. It's when you get past that fourth, fifth option that then pretty much it's entirely lopsided in favor of the Wolves, I would say. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think role players will have a huge determining factor in this series. And I also think how much does LeBron look like LeBron? How limited can the Minnesota defense make him? How much can they take Austin out of the equation to sort of even the playing field there and make it more of a Luka versus Ant series? I think that'll be a huge factor as to who prevails. I'm
curious who is going to guard who in this series. I don't exactly know who's going to be on. I think they'll probably I think the Wolves will probably throw different things at Luka. And one intriguing thing from a Wolves standpoint is they have a lot of good perimeter defenders. Ant as a star player is still a very good defensive player, especially when he's locked in and wants it. And he will want it in the playoffs against the Lakers. That is for certain. Jaden McDaniels, obviously. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's got some defensive chops, and then they've got Jalen Clark, who they can throw in there and kind of unleash if they choose to in kind of short bursts and make life hard. And he's not only quick, but he's kind of thicker, could maybe give Luka some problems there. So I think they have some things they can throw at Luka. I also thought that last year, and then Luka absolutely destroyed them in the Western Conference. That was one of the reasons I was optimistic about their chances against the Mavericks last year. And then Luka just does that to him. Yeah. Does it to them when it matters the most.
I personally don't see a huge difference as far as options to defend Luka from last year's team to this year's team, which is why I kind of think it's going to come down to everybody else. I think Luka will get his. I really don't see him being super limited by anyone on the Wolves roster. It's more of can you limit Austin Reeves? Can you limit LeBron James? Can Julius Randle show up on the defensive end, because he's really the only person with the size and strength to really give LeBron James any problems on that roster, I think. So I think that's kind of what it'll come down to more. I don't think the Lakers have anyone that I would feel super confident about guarding Ant, and I don't think the Wolves have anyone that I would feel super confident about guarding Luka. So that's sort of why I kind of prefaced it by saying I think those two might cancel each other out in a way if they're both playing up to their ceilings. It's kind of everybody else. It's going to be up to, the Wolves role players to make open shots. It's going to be up to the Lakers role players to make open shots. And it's going to be up to, LeBron James at 40 to sort of like carry the day sometimes.
I think Rudy Gobert is kind of an interesting X factor in this series because the Lakers have nobody of consequence who's big, right? They play Hachimura at center a lot, right? Or who do they play at center right now?
They start Jackson Hayes. His minutes are limited. He has a short leash. I would say JJ starts him, and he usually plays about 15 to 20 minutes all told. I would say Dorian Finney-Smith ends up being kind of in those center minutes sometimes. Jared Vanderbilt will be familiar.
I almost forgot about him. Yeah.
But really, the Lakers play small ball a lot, and I think that's why they've had success against teams that can only play big doing that because they can't keep up with them in the scoring and whatnot. I think, in my estimation, Rudy's probably going to be less involved in this series because I think the Wolves are probably going to have to play small to be successful in the series. And I know that people kind of look at it through the alternate side of that prism of like, what are the Lakers going to do with Rudy Gobert? I just don't think Rudy's enough of a scoring threat to make that really consequential. So I would say I would imagine we're going to see a lot more Naz Reid, a lot more Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like those guys, the wings of the Wolves lineup, I think will play a more important role than Rudy Gobert in this series, if I had to guess.
It's going to be interesting because they thrive when he's been good. He's been pretty good offensively lately, but offense for him is within 3 feet of the basket. Like it's not anywhere,
right. And even
anywhere else. And sometimes closer. Yeah, sometimes within 11 inches of the basket. Like get closer than a foot. Basketball Reference needs to have a special Rudy Gobert stat that's only like 1 foot away because that's, if you get further than that, it's still not that accurate. But he's been really good lately, and defensively, like, can he be kind of that, the guy that roams, the guy that's allowed to kind of like get, make sure everybody gets out of the paint and stuff like that? But again, I don't know that's necessarily the Lakers game right now. Like that's not really what LeBron and Luka are going to beat them at. There's not going to be drives. It's going to be, it's going to be kicking it. It's going to be finding other people. It's going to be, getting to the line, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Lakers surprisingly they've completely changed their identity since the Luka trade, and I think that's why JJ deserves a ton of credit because he really didn't miss a beat in creating basically an entirely new team, new identity, new defensive schemes, etc. And they're a 3-point shooting team now, which they never were in the past. They definitely weren't with the AD iteration of this lineup, and they're up in the top, I would say, 10 consistently, 5 often in 3-point volume since the Luka trade. They've just really switched into a perimeter shooting team. And so that's why I think it's going to be, and those guys are making shots, to be fair. Like, Dorian Finney-Smith is shooting over 40% from 3. Rui Hachimura is shooting over 40% from 3. So that's why I think if the Wolves are living and dying with Rudy Gobert, they're going to have issues in this series. Unless their role players are scoring so much that, that it doesn't really matter what they're doing on it. Like if they can outshoot the Lakers out of the gym, if they can outscore them, but, that's a different story. But I just don't really think that that's necessarily the identity of this team. And when they've been at their best, when they've been hitting their ceiling, they are leaning on the defensive end.
That's true, and the Wolves will shoot a lot of threes too. There's gonna be a lot of threes. It's gonna be a lot of
threes.
There's gonna be a lot of make or miss games, and that's gonna be interesting. Let's take a step back before we kind of get into a little bit more of this series. Like you're sitting there, it's NBA trade deadline, and then bam, Luka to the Lakers. It's like everybody is just like shocked. The Lakers were still a good team before that happened. We forget that. Like, AD was hurt at the time, then he came back, then he got hurt again with Dallas. So that was kind of unfortunate. We never really get to see what kind of impact that would have had on the Mavericks. And that's part of the problem in Dallas. They're not taking this too well. But like from a Lakers perspective, like just having like you said, having to remake on the fly a completely different player, but B, like the injection of hope and energy, but also like this was a team that was kind of built around 2 guys, and they still thought they had championship aspirations around those 2 guys. Like what was that like? How have they made this work? And like just the craziness of being in the middle of that trade.
For sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of revisionist history going on of like, of course, the Lakers ended up as the 3 seed. They got Luka midseason. Well, they were the 4 seed the night of the trade. They had just beat the Knicks in Madison Square Garden with no Anthony Davis,
right?
Because AD was already injured. They were on a winning streak. They were, firing on all cylinders. So I think, at first it was. I had a moment as someone who covers them closely of being a little bit sad to not be able to see through that team that got broken up mid-season, because I do think that there was something special there.
Yeah.
But I didn't in a million years think that this would. I was very high on the Luka LeBron fit. I also was very high on Austin Reeves not becoming redundant. I just think they're both such smart basketball players and they're both such great facilitators. Like, you can never have too many adept ball handlers. I really don't believe that, as long as they're unselfish. So I was really high on the fit, but I definitely thought it would take. I thought they were basically punting this season, and that next season it would look incredible. And I was dead wrong. I mean, it's really a testament to JJ, and it's a testament to sort of Luka, LeBron, and Austin as to how fast everything clicked. But the chemistry is incredible for having basically no time to gel at all. And I think, Luka is someone who's really motivated by slights. He's very emotional. He's very petty, and he's he loves to talk crap to someone in the front row. And so they kind of gift wrapped him in Dallas motivation he didn't even really need to go just embarrass them with his success on the Lakers. So I think they maybe didn't think that part through. Seems like they didn't think a lot of it through. No. And then, to your point, I mean, LeBron he plays different when he believes he has a chance. And that's understandable because, conservation of energy, if it doesn't really make sense to give it your all at 40, if you think you're going to get your first round exit. And you're seeing the difference of what LeBron's ceiling still can be when he believes that he actually has a shot at it, and he can still be incredible. So that's been really cool to watch. I don't know. I mean, this team, there's a lot of different bonding moments over the course of the season. JJ Redick lost his house in the LA fires. Right, yeah. The team kind of rallied around him in that moment. And then Luka obviously got very unceremoniously dumped and sort of trashed in the press. And so the team have really rallied around him. And then there's like the LeBron and Bronny of it all, so there's there's a lot of storylines this year. There's a lot of sort of morale boosting, like team chemistry boosting adversity moments. And this is the happiest I've seen LeBron since I started, closely covering this team. And this is the best team chemistry I've seen since the 1920 season. So it's been cool.
I was like, wait, 1920. You weren't. I was like, okay, the 2019, 2020.
Yeah, this is the best team chemistry I've seen since pre the Great Depression of 1933 or whatever. Yeah,
I don't know context.
Listen, I like to be hyperbolic, but not quite that.
Listen, context should have told me exactly what you were talking about. It's just my brain went to like, wait, 1920, like no,
19/20.
Yes, I know, I get it. And that was the bubble championship team.
Yes,
that was the team that won it all. And now here we are 5 years later. I mean, I still think it's interesting. So the Wolves have been such a weird team this year. And I think like even at the finish here, they went 17-4 in their last 21 games. And I still feel like all anybody wants to talk about was the 4 they lost. Like people here are still mad about the Cat trade. They're still mad that this isn't the same team as it was last year, but it's still a pretty good team. Like I don't know, like, I don't think it all came together exactly how they thought it would. Like Rob Dillingham hasn't really given them much as their kind of top first round pick. Like Chris Finch still loves to play as veterans more than anything else. And the only when people were injured did we see any glimpses of kind of the new guys. Like, Jalen Clark has kind of broken into the rotation, and probably just because of his defense more than anything. Terrence Shannon Jr. played for a little bit, but only because people were hurt. But like, it's still a pretty good year, but it's also a weird year in that it started off poorly, and now I think people are kind of looking at this Lakers series like, oh man, like you couldn't have gotten a worse draw. And they were basically like, Golden State making a basket away from being the 5 seed and playing the Nuggets, I think, in the first round.
The best draw for them.
Yes,
yeah.
That would have been a great draw for them. And they would have been like Nuggets. They would have been in the same bracket as Oklahoma City, but they beat Oklahoma City twice this year too. So like that would have been a better draw. I think people are like, there's a pessimism about this just because of the draw. I wonder if and how they can use that, or if it just doesn't matter, because it's Luka and LeBron. It's going to be a very difficult lift for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think getting hot at the right time is obviously super important in the NBA, and they definitely got hot at the right time. Like, it doesn't really matter when you get it together, as long as you have it together going into the playoffs and you make the playoffs, as long as you didn't biff it bad enough in the beginning of the season to miss the playoffs entirely, which they did not. But it's crazy that it came down to like single game, half game, tiebreakers. Like, it just goes to show the regular season really does matter in the Western Conference, at least. But, I don't think Wolves fans should be pessimistic. I think they absolutely have a chance in this series. And as long as you have Anthony Edwards, you have a chance in any series, but it is going to be incumbent on Ant to play like a superstar. And I think something we saw from him last year that I think there's been some growth in this department is sort of being jostled and unsettled by double teams and by having people swarm him and kind of like losing that decision making in those moments. And that's going to be a sign of growth if he's able to, circumvent that in the series. Cause I mean, obviously the Lakers are going to double. So, that'll be interesting to see. I don't think there's really anything to the like, oh, you're going against LeBron. Like, and we saw that he went against his hero and Kevin Durant and didn't bat an eyelash. So I don't think he'll have any issues with that. It's more of like the game planning to try and take him out of it and how he can handle that and if he can make the right reads in a timely fashion. And if the guys that he's making the reads to can make open shots, I think those are going to be the things that determine how the Wolves fare in this series. But I don't think anyone's expecting, nobody in LA, thinks this is going to be a sweep or anything like that. Like, I think it'll be really competitive and hard fought. And I would be surprised. I would be very surprised if it goes less than, let's say 6 games.
I think that's right. I think if I had to like make a prediction, I don't have to, but if I had to, I'd probably say like it feels like Lakers in 6 is like a safe pick, even though game 6 will be in Minnesota, because you just know a veteran team, they don't care where game 6 is, and they don't want to go. They wouldn't want to go to a game 7 at that point. And there'll be pressure on the Wolves at that point. But this will be, you're right. This is a maturity growth series for Ant, not a I don't know, it's not necessarily a legacy series. Like, he went to the Western Conference Finals last year, but it is to a certain degree, like, he's been anointed the guy now. Like, he had Cat last year. He's always had Cat next to him. Randall is not Cat. Randall's a very good player, but he's got some suspect playoff history, but he's not Cat. He's not a former number 1 pick. He's not a guy who's kind of got that kind of juice throughout the league. So he's been anointed the guy. How does he handle that in the playoffs? And you're right. Can he make the right play? Can he make the mature play? I think it's kind of an indictment or more of a referendum on his maturity in this series more than anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If you had to make a prediction, I made one. What would you say?
I would also say Lakers in 6. Again, I'm reticent to say that on this podcast because I know my audience here.
I already said it, so you can say it.
I think the Wolves have a good shot, and anything could happen. So I don't want to say like I'm certain that the Lakers are going to win this series, but I just know how much all the guys on the Lakers believe that they can win a championship this year. And if they're faced with the possibility of a first round exit, I just have a hard time believing that LeBron James and Luka Doncic won't just find a way, at the end of the day, no matter how even it becomes. Yeah. I have that same faith in Anthony Edwards. It's more the rest of the supporting cast that I think that gets called into question. But yeah, so if gun to my head, I would say Lakers in 6. I could see it going to a game 7, but to your point, I think they're going to do everything in their power not to do that, just because no one wants to play a single elimination game, as evidenced by how badly everybody was trying to get out of the play-in tournament. Yeah. So.
Yeah, the Wolves had to go 8-1 in their last 9 just to avoid the play-in, and it took
impressive.
Down to the very last one, and the one they lost was the one they blew to Milwaukee. My pessimism in this series isn't anything necessarily to do with the Wolves. I think I would have probably picked them against Denver, especially with Denver kind of being in disarray. Yeah, probably would have picked them at least to have like a coin flip chance against the Clippers, although the Clippers are playing very well right now. Probably would have even given them a pretty good shot to beat the Rockets, even though the Rockets are the 2 seed. This specific matchup is bad for them in a lot of different ways, and I think that's where this comes in.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Luck of the draw.
Luck of the draw. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Game
I think it's
one.
gonna be a great series.
I think it's gonna be a good series too. What's your coverage plan? You get to be courtside for games 1 and 2? Where are you gonna be?
My seats aren't courtside, but they're darn close. They're like, I sit, usually at crypto, I sit like about 6 or 7 rows back from courtside is where they have our little press section.
Yep.
So I'll be there for games 1 and 2, and then for the games at Target Center, I really wanted to try and come home because it was a cool excuse to maybe visit my mom, but it doesn't sound like I'm going to make it back. So I think I'll probably be watching at a bar with a beer. Ideally.
There's worse things than that too. There's definitely worse things than that too. Well, follow Claire's coverage if you want more of the good Lakers stuff, social media, The Guardian, everything like that. Claire, appreciate it as always. I'm sure we'll see you on social media during the series, and we'll see you down the road.
Can't wait. See you there.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye. Great stuff from Claire. Really appreciate her joining the show. She has a very, very busy week. A lot of podcast appearances, radio appearances, writing to do, games to be at, things like that. So I appreciate her time. Certainly, it was probably right around the time we were talking that the Wolves were having media availability. I want to play a little clip of Anthony Edwards from that availability because multiple people who were there are saying Ant sounds locked in. He seems different than he has been in the past, maybe even more focused, a maturity that Claire and I were talking about maybe coming into focus before this series. So let's listen to that for just a minute.
I mean, they may throw something different at us, but if not, we're used to their coverages as far as tilting the floor, overly in the gap. So just being willing to get off the ball to my teammates. And that goes back to me texting and talking to my teammates. Like I told Mike, you got to be willing to shoot 5 straight catch and shoot threes. Don't turn none down. Dante, Nikhil, Nas, Jaden, you got to be willing to shoot those shots and not turn anything down. And I got to be willing to make those passes every time.
And again, this is a tall task. It's the Lakers with LeBron. He's 40. There's not going to be a lot more opportunities like this for him. You don't know how compelled he is, but it's got to be a high level. You don't know if they're going to be fighting some officiating stuff, but it's not just LeBron too. It's Luka. It's all of that. Ant is not fighting this with, just by himself, but there is not another bona fide superstar on this roster, comparable to those three, Luka, LeBron, and Ant. Those are the 3 superstars in this series. The Lakers have 2. The Wolves have 1. I think the Wolves have a deeper, better overall roster than the Lakers did. Like Claire and I talked about, I don't think that's in debate. But how does that play out in the playoffs? A lot of this is going to fall on Ant's shoulders, whether that's fair or not. This is his franchise now. This is his burden. This is his playoffs. This is his time to shine. We will see if he can get it done along with his teammates. That will do it for me today. Like I said, lots of good stuff coming up. Might do split shows on Friday. NHL and NBA playoff previews. Hoping to have both Sarah McClellan and Chris Hine, but that would be way too much for one show. So I might split those previews into 2 different shows on Friday. Wolves series starts Saturday. Sure sounds like the Wild series will start Sunday. Lots going on next week. I think there's going to be an Access Vikings podcast early next week that I'll be on with some mock draft stuff on it. So plenty for me to do, plenty for you to listen to. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow.